What's up, friends? Today we are here with the Defiant One, and you guys might know, but it's been a while since you've seen this thing on the channel, and I'm finally here to give you guys my full review and tell you my story about my experience with the Defiant One. This has been over a year in the making, and I'm excited to share it with you guys, so be sure to stick until the end to see all of my performance metrics and all the things that I waited so long to get the data for. Alrighty, so this whole experience with the Defiant board started quite a long time ago. If you haven't seen my first video that I did with this, it was the first ride test. I'll link it up in the iCard, but that was last year in, I want to say I posted it in June or something. I'll put the date on screen, but it was a long time ago. But my Defiant experience started way before that. Now, Defiant One has actually been around for quite a while, and they started quite a long time ago when they formed the company. This is back in 2021. They reached out to Long-Haired Boy, which is sort of a OG on the Esk8.news forum, and even on the Esk8 Builders forum, which is way back in the day when I joined in like 2017, I want to say. But he was always renowned for building some pretty sweet boards. So basically Defiant One formed, contacted Long-Haired Boy to help build their boards for them. And that was back in 2021. Back in 2022, in August, they made a post on the Esk8.news forum. This was the first thing anyone ever heard about them, talking about their new board and how they were releasing it and the specs and stuff like that, so we could all see it first. And that's not surprising because Long-Haired Boy, aka Damon, owns the Esk8.news forum, and he also frequents there from time to time, and it's kind of like the OG community. So he posted it there for us to get feedback. I think some people gave some feedback, mostly positive. We were all stoked for a new board to be coming out from Damon, and so that was back in August. And back in that time, they had some issues with their deck supplier. I guess they weren't receiving the decks, or they were having issues with the quality or something like that. Don't know exactly what happened with that, but we ended up taking a long break before I saw anything get posted or anything like that. They ended up basically waiting until Esk8Con 2023, I think, before they shipped anything. I want to say it was even later than that, but my first experience with the board was at Esk8Con 2023. I got to meet Damon. I also got to meet Nick, who is the CEO of Defiant One at the time. The leadership and team over there has changed a couple times over the years, but that was back in 2023 in, I think it was March, or no, it was April in 2023. March or April, whatever, it doesn't matter. But in any case, that was my first time that I saw the board in person. I thought it looked awesome. It had this awesome red deck, super wide, shiny silver motors and trucks, which is something that was not super common at the time. And it had sort of the DIY-esque feel, just because it uses a lot of similar components that the DIY forum regards as high quality, like Stormcore. It was a lot better back in the day. A couple of years ago when LaCroix was still in business. 12S5P of Molicel P42A. We've got Boardnamics designed trucks and gear drives, which, if you guys don't know who Boardnamics is, I've used a lot of their parts. So it was great to see those on there. Uses the puck, and it's just kind of a great setup altogether. And there weren't really any higher capacity boards at the time when this was originally releasing. So having 12S5P in there, like, to compete slightly above the average foreign board, which was like 12S4P, it still kind of is now, but 12S5P had a little bit of an edge. And one of the things that we thought was kind of weird is to release a pure street board, because everything is 2-in-1. Everything has been 2-in-1 for a long time, but Defiant One to release a street board, which I can respect for because people like street boards, and there are certain people that would love this. However, the gear ratio that released on this is 2.2, which is super low. Motors get hot pretty quick, so they turned down the motor amps to, I think it's like 70 or something like that. So the power is not super there to support a wheel that's much bigger than these Mad Esk8 wheels that I've got on here right now. So you go too high with the wheel, you're gonna have like no torque, no braking. So the sweet spot really seems to be, I would say, max 125 millimeters. Go much higher than that, you're gonna have overheating issues, I think. But essentially, going back to Esk8Con, 2023, I took not this board, but a different board home with me from Esk8Con, so they didn't have to ship it and all stuff like that. That was the one that I made my first video with. And I think I have a little bit of footage of how that went. So let's talk a little bit about what the heck happened to the first one of these boards over a year ago. I'll put a little bit of footage on screen right now of when I was riding this for the first time, but my first experience with this was great. Took it out of the, I took it out of my garage after I charged it up, after coming home from Esk8Con. Took it out, recorded the first video, and it was awesome. Great motor sound, okay power, decent top speed, stability was okay. I still think that these trucks are a little bit too wide, but in any case, it was a really fun board. And the deck felt pretty nice. It was something that I'm still a little bit torn about. I think it's too long, but the standing platform is nice and wide, and I usually like to have nice wide decks so that my feet don't hang off the edges. But I rode it around for a while. I was riding it every day at work down in my sort of suburban area that I work in, and I broke it really fast, in fact. The first set of gear drives and motors lasted a total of 34 miles, I want to say. And I completely bricked it. It was going up a hill. A motor or a rock must have hit the motor or something and dented the can, completely dented it in, and it got stuck. And I was able to limp it to work, but it was pretty rough. It sounded horrible. And basically that completely bricked that first drivetrain. So that drivetrain lasted 34 miles, was not super happy about that, but I reached out to Defiant and I was like, hey guys, broke the drivetrain, and they're like, okay, we will send you out a new one. And obviously, well, not obviously, but I know Damon pretty well. We've talked over the years. He's seen my DIY work. He knew that it would be no problem for me to install the new drivetrain, run motor detection, etc. So they sent me out a full new drivetrain. I did take some footage of the first, I believe I took a little bit of footage of the first drivetrain that I took apart. So I'll put that on screen now, or put the photos on screen. And then we will talk about the switching process, because I have some footage of the internals as well.
I didn't even remember that I recorded this, but this was the moment I realized that the deck had started to crack, and that was a little bit concerning as well. But I've got a little bit of footage of the inside of the board, which I think would be interesting for you guys to see.
I should put a fair warning out there right now that this is going to be a very long video. So I really don't want to do two parts. So this is going to be the story and the review in the same video. Hopefully you'll get an idea of how I like this board throughout that experience. And anyway, use the chapters if you want, but I just wanted to tell you guys the whole story. So basically, broke the first drivetrain. I took it apart. Looks pretty good inside. I showed some footage of that, or I will now. And it's got nice battery management and like cable management, and everything looked pretty tacked down in there. Storm core is in there, and then we've got the motor cables that were hot glued into the exits from the enclosure. The enclosure is pretty sweet. It's like a really durable sort of urethane material, and that's super unique, something that you don't really see on any other board, I don't think. And took that apart, took the old drivetrain off, pretty easy. I opened the gear drives just to look at them, but it was the motor that was broken. And then I put the new gear drive on, or new drivetrain on, put the wheels back on, programmed the motors, and we were all good to go. Now, this was after I recorded that first video. So then I decided to keep riding it because I try to put 100 miles on every board that I review. So I went to go ride it again, riding it every day, riding it around the city, in and out of driveways, in bike lanes, nothing crazy, just normal everyday riding for me, going on sidewalks from time to time, and I broke it again. Except this time it was worse. I was doing my range tests, which I might have some footage from. I don't remember if I was recording that day, but the original range test, I got to 21 miles, and I was coming around near my house actually, at the time, near where I was living, and one of the motors broke like off the gear drive. Oh my God! What? That's not supposed to happen. I couldn't believe it. I've never seen this before, but the screws that hold the motor onto the plate of the gear drive like pulled out of the motor, and also like pulled the gear off the motor. And it was just like hanging off the end. And this was like when I was going like 2 miles an hour, which is super lucky that it didn't break at high speed. But yeah, the motor like broke off, and both of the motors were in terrible condition, as was the case for all of these failures. So yeah, that is part of the thumbnail. Actually, I'm planning on using the photo of me holding the board up with the broken motor, which is a little bit clickbaity, but I want to tell you guys my whole story of how we've come to today. So, gear drive's broken, or the motor's broken again. I messaged Defiant. I was like, hey, the board's broken again, and they weren't super happy about that, but they wanted feedback, and this is what they got. So, it so happened that when I was inspecting the board before sending it, that I noticed the deck was cracked. And in fact, it was fairly bad. It was cracked all along the sides here, close to the base plate, sort of delamming and cracking on the front and on the back. So yeah, that was not good. And this was, I want to say, around June, July, maybe August or something like that in 2023. And so I packaged this up, sent the whole board back to Defiant headquarters, and they got the broken board, and I didn't really hear from them at all after that. So we had this huge gap, and during the time from August until, I want to say, late January of 2024, it was kind of like radio silence from Defiant boards on the forum. Some of the customers that had bought boards were able to contact them and get customer service, which was good. But I'm assuming they were working on figuring out their deck manufacturer. That's what they told me, at least. During that period, from when I sent the board back, they did a full inspection and teardown. They found that the deck was broken, like I said, and they decided to change deck manufacturers because it was too much of a risk to have more boards break like that. So during that time, they switched deck manufacturers to the one that makes this current deck. And I don't know if my cracked one was a bad batch or bad manufacturer or what, but hopefully that's fixed now. I haven't broken this new one yet. And this one has about 75 miles on it so far. So that's good. But in terms of their response, I didn't really hear from them. I was bugging them all the time, probably like once every couple weeks, from August all the way until January, trying to get a new unit because it broke during my range test. I didn't finish all of the data that I needed to finish. And the one thing, some of my fellow community members were like, oh, you should make a video about how you broke it and stuff like that. And I didn't really want to make a full review of this thing without having all the data. I like to have all of my range tests, all my performance data and all that before I do a full review. Now, part of the reason I was like semi-okay with not making that is that Defiant told me specifically that after my board had been sent back to them, they found the deck issue, that they did not sell or ship, or I guess ship is more accurate. They didn't ship any boards from that time until when they got the new decks. And that's partly why it took so long for me to have a new unit, because they were sending out customer boards first. And then I didn't get my new unit until much later actually. But I actually didn't even think that I was going to get a new one. So thank you, Defiant, for sending that over and letting me finish this review finally. Now, so we're kind of in like January, February of 2024, they start shipping out boards again. I believe Fred, Esk8 Unity, he had his board the whole time. I don't think his broke. Maybe he had a gear drive issue, I'm not sure. Some customers on the East Coast did have some issues with their Defiant boards where the deck broke or where there was some other issues. And I think Hyper Esk8 Repairs, my friend Jeffrey, I think they repaired a couple of them. As far as I know, Defiant has been pretty good customer service wise, getting things fixed. So that's always good. They are US based, so that helps a bit for customer service in a way. Please let me know down in the comments if you've had a good or bad experience with them. It's very valuable for other people to know how your experience was with a US based company, because there's so few now. So we're in like February, March, Esk8Con comes around, Defiant is there again. I say hi to Damon. I'm like, hey dude, where's my replacement demo unit? Not like that, like we're friends, so it wasn't rude or anything. I'm like, hey dude, can I get another board? And he's like, yeah, we'll make that happen. And that gave me some hope. I was like, yes, I can finally finish this review, because seriously, I've been waiting to do this for so long. And so I guess he got some gears turned in. I was talking to their other team member for a while, like bugging them, trying to get this board, trying to get it so I could finish this up. Now, past Esk8Con, April, May comes around, and then I see their new, I want to say social media representative, when I go to the June Phoenix Electrify Race League race. I see them there, and I think about 4 days before I went there was when I finally got a tracking number for the board, and I was stoked. I was like, yes, I finally get to finish this. And so I ended up getting the board right like the day I got back from that race. I said hi to them there, came home, and the board was here. So I was stoked. That brings us all the way to what, June, July, sorry, like end of May, I think it was. Yeah, so I've had this board for a while now. I put a good amount of miles on it, and I haven't broken it yet, so that's great. But I will say that it's been over a year since I first started riding the first one, and the prices dropped a lot. I believe it still says $1,800 on the site right now. Originally released at $3,000, so they've done some development. However, they still have a Storm Core. They have the same motors, same gear drives, same trucks. Everything is the same except for the deck. So while the deck was a big issue, it's not the thing that I broke twice. And it is worth mentioning that all of the times I've broken this, I've been running the rear base plate at the lowest angle of, I think it's 33 degrees, because that's the best angle in my opinion, because you get nice stability in the back. And then the front one I've been running at 48 minus 5, 43 degrees. So we got a little bit more turning angle in the front than the back. Gives you a good balance of stability and turnability. So the motors are lower to the ground than if you were to have it at 48 degrees, but I just don't think that's stable enough with this wide of a truck. So I will take some of the blame for breaking the motors, but I just think that they probably should have considered a little bit higher off the ground design or different motor supplier. And hopefully none of your motors break. Hopefully your Defiant board is fine, but please let me know in the comments again if you've had issues with it or if you've broken something, because again, very valuable to know. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of where this thing has been for so long and why it took me so long to do this review. And hopefully that paints a fair picture on both sides of showing and being transparent with what actually happened, and also giving Defiant a little bit of leeway in the communication that they were acquiring a new deck supplier, because it can be difficult and it can be quite time consuming. So let's go ahead and go straight into the actual review, get into the nitty gritty, get those performance numbers, and I'll give you my final RBEM score and some final thoughts on this board. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about some positives and negatives on this board when it comes to riding experience and general use. So first off, range, very good. With the standard BOA wheels on there, you get around 27 miles on my standard range test at a weight of approximately 180-ish pounds plus gear. The range test is going to vary for every person. It'll vary depending on your the temperature of the environment, how heavy you are, how many hills you have, etc. There is actually a range section in the PSPEC score, so we'll leave that till later to talk about it more, but range is good. I like that. The power is good. It's a VESC. It rides well, has good power above 20 miles an hour, and it's super fun to just like pound on the throttle, just go like bam, bam, bam when you're at that higher speed, because it feels nice. Super smooth, super predictable, and just really nice. It's a VESC, so it's kind of to be expected. But along with that, the gear drives sound awesome. They're not too loud, not too quiet. They just are really satisfying. Makes it sound like a little rally car, and I like that a lot. I like having the DaVega, this little screen at the front. It's pretty convenient, especially when paired with a puck, since you don't have any information on here. You can see your lifetime mileage, your lifetime battery discharge, your trip mileage, etc. Just a really nice thing to have, and the puck works well with this VESC setup. The deck is kind of an in-between for me. So we're gonna shift to like some of the negatives now. The deck is too long. It is bad for my riding stance. I always ride like close to the outside of the stance. It's just way too long for me. You can try standing a little bit further forwards, but it is still not very comfortable. It does not, this new deck, which presumably to fix the breakage, is stiffer. It does not flex very much at all. I'll put a clip on screen of me bouncing on the deck. There's hardly any flex. It's really bad at absorbing vibrations, and it's bad at absorbing impacts. So now all is get transferred straight into your ankles. And man, the 27-mile range test was absolute misery at the end. My ankles were killing me, especially my rear one, being at an angle off of the back, and just taking all those impacts straight into it. So, and that's with the stock wheels. These ones that are on here right now, the matte Esk8 wheels, there's a reason they're on there, because it makes it a lot more bearable to do longer mileage rides. Now, the deck is definitely kind of the most important thing on the board, so that does get pretty low points for me, which is really sad, because I liked the original one better when it flexed more and was a little bit more comfortable, but obviously it wasn't strong enough. So very subjective, but deck's not super for me. The second thing, these wheels, oh man, these BOAs are not for me either. They're just not competitive at all in terms of comfort, or really, I mean, grip is fine, but it's just regular urethane. There's so many better wheels out there that you could put on that are either rubber or urethane, like the Maddie Skate wheels. I mean, I would take almost any other wheel besides these ones. Maddie Skate ones are my pick right now. I also think the new Cloud Wheel FE Discovery wheels in the 105 version would be awesome on this board. Absolutely awesome. They have so much vibration and impact absorption, it kind of would account for some of the deck. These ones have so much grip, love them. It makes the board completely different. Honestly, if you think that you might not like the harshness of urethane, just don't even bother riding these, because the Mad E-Skate wheels are that much better. Like, it sounds really shilly for Mad E-Skate, but if you've ridden them, you know what I'm talking about. There's just more grip, more comfort, and it makes the board so much better. So that's why they're still on the board while we're doing this review. So wheels are a negative. And then third thing, the durability for me, it's just, if I was spending $3,000, which is the list price for this board, I would not want to worry about my gear drives or my motors just breaking on me. I could say that I'm a little bit more of a harsh rider than the average person, but I don't think that the average person is necessarily buying this board. It's more of the high-end boutique and maybe enthusiast spenders that would spend this much money on a board, which even still $1,800 plus tax and shipping. I don't know if shipping's free, I can't remember, but it's a lot of money to spend on a board. And when you have competitors like the Nomad N3, or even, I'm trying to think of other ones, some of Propel's boards where you have the option to go 2-in-1 for pneumatics or other functionality, it's really hard to justify the price point for this durability that I've experienced. Again, your mileage may vary, literally, because who knows if your gear drives will break, but you can look at some B-roll of my motors right now. This is from 75 miles of normal riding on my fairly bad streets, going in and out of driveways, going in bike lanes all the time, going at high speed, and the motors are pretty beat up. I don't know how much longer they're gonna last. I don't know how much longer I'm gonna have this board either, to be fair, but that's kind of a summary for me on the negatives that I have off the top of my head, and then if I think of any more while we're doing the performance overview and stuff, I'll tell you then. But that's kind of my thoughts for now. Hopefully that was valuable for some of you in making your purchasing decision. Alrighty, let's go ahead and go straight into the PSPEC for this board. This is a score that I created that summarizes all of your performance aspects that are important in a board and puts them into one number, and also just gives you a really nice chart of how things come out. Now, in the performance spec, we have a number of things. First, we have acceleration testing through the 0 to 20 mile an hour test and the 100-meter sprint. Then we have braking, how fast can your board stop from 15 miles an hour to 0 in terms of feet. We also have a torque test, we do top speed, and then we also have the range test as well. So all those numbers combined give you a PSPEC composite score. So we're just gonna go through each of the different tests right now and present the results. So first off, the acceleration test, 0 to 20 miles an hour. Also, if you've seen my short, I did already present all these numbers, but we'll just go through them real quick anyway. The Defiant One scored 5th place in the acceleration test of 0 to 20 miles an hour and came out at 3.52, 0 to 20. Pretty decent. It felt very controllable, not jerky at all, smooth power, and it just worked really well. Once you get past 20, it's also very good. Still super smooth, and it'll go all the way up till over 40 miles an hour, which I think personally is way too much for a urethane board. If you're riding over 40 on urethane, hats off to you. The other part of the acceleration testing is the 100-meter sprint, and the Defiant One came in 3rd place on the 100-meter sprint, with its top speed helping it out quite a bit. I believe I crossed the line at 36.5 miles an hour on the 100-meter line, and it came in, like I said, 3rd place at 9.17 seconds. Pretty dang good. As for braking, this is actually sort of a sticking point for me on this board. I don't know what's going on exactly, but it has this behavior of if you super heavy brake and and you lose traction on one wheel, it'll chatter. It can be really jarring if you don't know to expect it, or if you don't put enough weight on your rear feet when you do that hard braking maneuver. This is like full all the way to the back end of the remote braking. But once you put enough weight at the back, it won't chatter anymore. I put a small video of that on the screen. It feels pretty weird, but you'll get used to it once you figure out how to weight it properly. In terms of the braking tests, Defiant One came in sort of mid-pack at 7th place with 24 feet as its best. Pretty decent. It'll definitely stop you quick enough, but if you're heavier or if you switch to a larger wheel, it may be a little bit tough to stop quickly. There are definitely other boards to stop a lot faster. In terms of the torque, it came in right in the middle of the pack, and it's pretty average. I would say that it's definitely on the lower side in the feeling of launching from zero. That's usually what the torque is kind of used for. The 0 mile-an-hour torque is how violent the launch will be, and then 0 to 20 shows you how quickly that tapers off. So we're pretty decent there. The max speed is definitely impressive on the Defiant. I did have a fan or a subscriber or whatever send me a video of them hitting 41 on this thing. I personally didn't go that fast. I kind of used a weighted score of, we have a calculator that calculates like a weighted top speed for VESC, and it works really well. I really just didn't want to go up to 43, but it'll definitely do over 40 miles an hour, which I think is good enough. That'll beat a lot of other boards. It does take a while to get there, granted, but it will go pretty fast. And like I said, I did get up to about 37, so that's still pretty quick. In any case, it comes in 2nd place in terms of top speed capability. Definitely will be faster than either of the ASDEC Nomad boards. But there are probably some other boards out there that will be faster than it. So last thing we have is range, and the Defiant One did pretty well, coming in at
30.12 miles
of range. And like I said, this is on my standardized wheel testing and range testing route. It did a number of laps, and the dying battery behavior is pretty calm. You retain your top speed for quite a while, and it doesn't drop off until the very end, and then it'll drop off pretty quick. So once I got down to, I want to say 1 bar on the DaVega, I still had like 1.5 miles left, and then it got really slow, and once it hits that 3 miles an hour mark, that's when I consider it dead. I believe I have some clips from the range test, so I'll put them in the video right now. Alrighty, it's time for the PSPEC composite score. And the composite score for the Defiant One comes out to 51.9. This score puts it in a nice 4th place behind 3 of my DIY boards. And I do feel it is somewhat fair to compare it to the DIY board, since it uses a lot of similar components, similar battery, and everyone gets compared equally anyway. So the fact that DIY boards won just means that you can build better boards by yourself. But in any case, this is currently the highest production board on here, and that is definitely an achievement. Now, PSPEC isn't everything, so let's go ahead and move right on to the RBEM score. Alrighty, it's time for the RBEM score, which is a number of subjective judgments that I place on every single board that I review. First off, we've got build quality, and Defiant is getting a 6 out of 10 for build quality. Honestly, with the amount of stuff that's broken, it could even be lower, but in general, the manufacturing quality, the fit and finish is all really good. The trucks and gear drives and bushings are all super high quality. You've got riptides in there, you've got nice deck protectors, you've got awesome paint. The grip tape is really clean. One weird sticking point is that they didn't do anything with the motor wires. They're kind of just hanging out there. I'll put some B-roll of that, but I think that's really lazy. I think they should at least have some P-clamps on the screws of the base plate. They did mention a long time ago that they were going to do something about that, so maybe they just didn't on this board and it's fixed now. The other thing is that the cable for the DaVega underneath the front over here is sticking out, super minor. It's not going to catch on anything, but I would like to see that protected at some point. So 6 out of 10, I think that's fair. For the deck, I did put an 8 out of 10 because it nails a lot of the things that I like in a deck, but it's just not as comfortable as a lot of the other decks that I've ridden, and I wouldn't want to do a ton of mileage on it. I would love to have more of a Hummy style length or flex because it's just too uncomfortable for me. Honestly, I'm going to knock that to a 7. I don't think that it's fair for it to be an 8. So we're going to put 7 out of 10 for the deck. For the remote, I give it an 8 out of 10 just because the puck is so reliable. Could get more if it had a screen or something useful like that, but I do think this is much more solid and better than some of the China remotes. It's just missing some functionality. But in general, very reliable. Battery on it lasts a decent amount of time, but overall, pretty good. ESC, 8.8 out of 10. It is a VESC. I'm a little bit biased towards VESC only because the performance is so much better in terms of smoothness and predictability. So maybe I wouldn't say biased, I just think it is better. So having a VESC in here is a huge plus for it. However, I do think that it could be a little bit higher in power, and I really think the brake issue needs to be fixed. This does have smart reverse, which is super convenient, but I think maybe some of the settings might need to be messed with to fix that brake stuttering issue that I was experiencing. In terms of trucks and bushings, I gave it a 9 out of 10 because they're very high quality. The trucks themselves are Board Dynamics trucks. They're adjustable base plates from 38 to 43 to 48 degrees, and that gives you a lot of options for how you can do your splits, and they're just made well. I like them a lot, and they're pretty strong as well. They are 8mm axles, so some crazy riders might bend them, but in my experience they've been really good and I like them. I do think that they're a little bit wide, which is why they didn't get even higher than a 9, but honestly, really good job. For wheel options, this scored pretty low at 3.5 because you're pretty much limited to anything that is 100mm to 125mm in my opinion. So you really get like most of the street wheels, but pretty much none of the pneumatics and none of the smaller street wheels, which I don't know why you would want to go smaller, but I really wouldn't suggest running lower than 100mm on here because otherwise you're just going to be scraping the gear drives and motors on everything, and that's just going to make them brake faster or break. So 3.5 out of 5 covers a lot of street wheels, but leaves out all the pneumatics pretty much except for the Hoyt 5s. I think Defiant is supposed to be releasing a hub for the Hoyt tires, and I think Hoyt is still going to keep making the tires even though they're not really selling complete boards anymore. As for water resistance, there's no official rating, I believe, on the site, but the enclosure bits are all sealed pretty well. Does leave a lot of gaps for water to get in with all of the tons and tons of screws. Man, if you have to take this thing apart, it's going to take you a while to unscrew everything, but everything inside is sealed pretty well. It's covered in heat shrink, so if some water did get in, there's a chance that it'll probably be fine, but I would still open it up to check. Definitely never ever something that I would want to ride in the rain. Just not a good idea in my opinion, but if you get stuck in a tiny bit of drizzle or if the ground is a little damp, you'll probably be okay in terms of water resistance. So I gave it a 3 out of 5. I think it's okay. It's not like it's completely unsealed, but definitely don't rely on it. Customer service, I did give it a 4.5 out of 5 for this. Defiant has decent customer service in terms of response time. I do think that some customers felt that they were being a little bit too vague when they were waiting for their boards to ship or when they were waiting to get answers on why the deck manufacturer was taking so long. So they do have some room to improve, but the general consensus that I've gotten is that they're generally pretty responsive. Again, if I'm wrong on that, please leave a comment if you have experience with them. That's the sort of vibe that I've gotten. In terms of price and value, unfortunately, I had to give it a pretty low score for this at 2.5 out of 5. And there's a number of reasons for that. And the first of those being it's just so dang expensive. I do have to rate this price based on the non-marked off price because you never know with the marked off price thing. Some companies just always leave it like that, which is technically not allowed, but they are having a sale right now for $1,800. I believe it still says that. But the $3,000 mark is just way too high for this board. It's a street board without really the ability to do any kind of 2-in-1 besides 5-inch tires without suffering extreme performance degradation. The parts are high quality, and you do get a 12S5P of multi-cell P42As. There's a lot here, good power in general, but I don't rate the value as highly as I do for some of the other boards that did outperform it in the PSPEC chart. And I have reviewed a lot of boards that are not really in the same price category. So the things that this is getting directly compared to for me are like the Nomad N1, the Nomad N3, the Meepo Hurricane, the Evolve Hadean, and the Hadean Diablo, which I've not ridden yet. So it's kind of competing with things in that category, which a lot of those are not quite as good value, but it's at the higher end of the price and the lower end of the performance in a lot of the metrics. So that's kind of why I rated it for that middle of the road in value. All of that together brings us out to a total PSPEC score of 52.3. And that does bring us like right in the middle of the pack on all the boards that I've reviewed. More boards are coming. I've got V5, wait, actually, yeah, I'm blacking out the V5 score on there. I've got Meepo Envy, Wowgo 3E, I need to put the Aries X1 on here. I've got Nomad coming. I've got a lot more scores that are gonna be coming up on this chart soon. 52.3 I think is fairly decent, but definitely not my favorite board in the world, but it's something that I would definitely give to a friend to ride for a ride, and I would feel fairly confident that they're going to enjoy their time on it. So even with some of its fallbacks, I think the Defiant One at $1,800 is still a fairly decent purchase. I just really hope that people don't have issues with their gear drives breaking. So that's kind of my thoughts there. That's my RBEM score. And now we'll finally do a closeout. I know this video has been long, but I hope that it has been valuable for some people who are looking at buying this board. Alrighty, it's time for the closeout. Now, a couple things. This board is very heavy. It's almost 40 pounds. Not really super portable because it's so gigantic. It does have good range, has good power. I generally enjoy the performance of it. The deck is not super comfortable for me, but that will vary depending on the person and their weight and their terrain and all kinds of things. Range does good, power does good, customer service pretty good as far as I've seen. So is it a buy? I think it can be a buy, but you just have to know what you're going into. If you have been enjoying this video, please get a like down below. I know I don't really like asking for likes, but it does make a difference to let me know if you guys are liking the content that I'm producing. So if you get a chance, go ahead and do that if you liked the video. If not, let me know in the comments. Tell me how I can improve. What other performance metrics you might like to see. But overall, that's the Defiant One. That's my story with it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching this, found it valuable, and that's pretty much all I've got to say. So thanks for watching. Stay safe, keep on riding, and peace out.